We live in an era of constant, high-speed communication, yet we regularly find ourselves surrounded by strangers. Look at a typical daily commute. We pack ourselves tightly into transit cars, staring into glowing rectangles, entirely cut off from the person standing inches away. Isolation triggers a specific biological reaction. Without meaningful social bonds, the brain's fear center, the amygdala, enters an elevated state of alarm known as a primal threat response. It assumes that because we are alone, we are vulnerable to attack. That persistent, quiet state of alarm sends a direct signal to the adrenal glands, triggering a heavy flood of a stress hormone called cortisol directly into the bloodstream. This graph charts the long-term effects of that chemical exposure. Over time, high sustained cortisol physically wears the body down, driving severe chronic anxiety and causing a measurable drop in long-term cognitive function. Loneliness is a chronic biological crisis. It is a physiological emergency that requires active intervention to stop the damage. Interrupting that emergency state requires action. The very first step is throwing away the standard script of polite, empty greetings. Instead of a passing nod or a mumbled, "How are you?" one person stops and asks a question that actually demands a real answer. Something specific like, "What's the best part of your week been?" Taking that step feels inherently awkward. You are putting yourself out there, risking rejection, and inviting a few seconds of sharp psychological discomfort. Pushing through that awkward tension is the prerequisite for breaking the brain out of its isolated defense mode, opening the door to real connection. Over the next few weeks, that single awkward question evolves. Two people cross paths at the same coffee counter, sharing a few minutes of conversation that transition from polite exchanges to easy, relaxed laughter. What builds the relationship here is consistency. Regular, brief check-ins provide far more stability than a deep conversation that only happens once a year. Knowing someone will reliably be there on a Tuesday morning regulates the nervous system. The brain stops scanning for threats and establishes a new, calm baseline. This chart illustrates that cycle of safety. Each predictable interaction triggers a reliable hit of dopamine. That chemical reward tells the brain, "This person is safe," which builds trust and encourages the next interaction. Trust is a biological mechanism built through thousands of tiny, repeated cycles of reward and safety. Eventually, that foundation is tested. A bad day at work, a sudden loss, or an unexpected crisis strips away the casual banter and forces one person to share something deeply personal and painful. The response to this moment dictates the survival of the bond. It requires mutuality, the willingness of the other person to sit in that stress and actively listen. Active listening means offering complete attention. It requires silencing the urge to immediately offer advice or fix the problem, and simply being fully present. When someone feels truly heard, their brain chemistry shifts. Look at this comparison. On the left, a chaotic spike of a cortisol stress response. On the right, the brain floods with oxytocin, neutralizing the panic. As oxytocin washes out stress hormones, the brain rewires itself, updating its environmental map from hostile to safe. True psychological resilience is built by successfully outsourcing a portion of our emotional regulation to a trusted social bond. Months later, those two strangers navigate a crowded park. Relaxed and deeply engaged, they are entirely insulated from the noise of the crowd around them. The constant hum of anxiety and the persistent threat response that once governed their nervous systems have quieted down. This established connection now acts as an invisible buffer. When life inevitably delivers the next crisis, their bodies won't spiral into panic because their nervous systems know they have support. Profound mental health and resilience are the direct biological payoffs of deliberately practicing human connection. You can initiate this process today. First, break the script. Look past the generic small talk and ask a question that requires a genuine answer. Second, show up consistently. Focus on brief, regular check-ins to build a reliable cycle of trust and dopamine. Third, embrace vulnerability. When the hard moments come, practice active listening and share the emotional weight. The people standing around you right now are potential anchors for your health. By taking these deliberate steps, you transform passive acquaintances into the essential support your nervous system requires.